Imagine a man who walks into her life, not just as another face in the crowd, but as someone who changes the way she sees the world. You know, the type I'm talking about, the man whose presence lingers long after he's gone, whose actions echo in her mind, and whose character leaves an imprint on her heart. Women don't easily forget men like this. Not because of charm, not because of looks, not because of wealth. They remember because he does things that touch the core of who she is. Things that speak to her soul, things that make her feel seen, safe, and inspired. Think about it, how often do we get caught up in the surface level pursuit of attention, when what truly matters is the way we make someone feel? A woman may forget a fleeting compliment, a fancy gift, or a casual smile, but she will never forget the man who made her feel secure, who truly listened, who challenged her to be better, who recognized her worth beyond the superficial, and who showed unwavering loyalty when it mattered most. These are the men who leave a mark, not because they tried to impress, but because they chose to impact. This speech is about uncovering the 6 unforgettable actions that make a man impossible to forget. We'll explore not just what he does, but why it resonates, why it lingers, and how it shapes her perception of love, respect, and partnership. By the end of this talk, you'll understand that becoming this type of man is not about grand gestures, but about conscious, consistent, and meaningful actions that touch her heart in ways words alone cannot. From the moment a woman opens herself up to someone, she is scanning, observing, and feeling. She's feeling the energy, the intention, the consistency, and the trustworthiness of the man in front of her. And here's the truth. No one forgets the man who makes her feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally. Safety isn't just about being shielded from harm. It's about feeling secure enough to be vulnerable, to share her fears, her dreams, her deepest insecurities, without worrying about judgment, ridicule, or betrayal. When a man creates that space, he becomes unforgettable because he touches a part of her soul that very few people ever reach. Think about it for a moment. How many times has a woman been cautious, careful, or guarded around men in her life? Maybe she's been let down before, maybe she's been hurt, or maybe she's simply protective of her heart. A man who shows up and consistently demonstrates that she doesn't need to protect herself around him stands out immediately. It doesn't matter how many men tell her she's beautiful or smart or important. Those words alone cannot replace the feeling of genuine safety. Words are easy, actions are rare. When a man's actions align with his words, when he is consistent, dependable, and present, she notices it, she appreciates it, and she never forgets it. Physical safety is often the first layer. A woman remembers the man who makes her feel protected in his presence, not because he dominates, controls, or intimidates, but because his strength is paired with respect and responsibility. She remembers the way he carries himself in the world, calm under pressure, decisive, without arrogance, and assertive without aggression. She notices how he handles conflict, how he stands up for what is right, and how he prioritizes her well-being without needing to be told. That presence is unforgettable because it tells her, without words, that she can trust him to be a steady anchor when the world feels uncertain. But emotional safety is even more powerful. A woman will never forget the man who listens without judgment, who absorbs her truths without twisting them, who allows her to speak without immediately offering solutions or criticism. Emotional safety is not passive, it's active. It's noticing when she is afraid, anxious, or hesitant, and responding with empathy, patience, and understanding. It's recognizing that her emotions are valid even when they don't make logical sense to him. It's being there when she's vulnerable, not as a rescuer, but as a companion who lets her feel, process, and heal. This kind of emotional presence is rare, and that rarity makes a man unforgettable. Consistency is the glue that holds safety together. A woman will remember a man who consistently shows up, who doesn't disappear when things get uncomfortable, who doesn't flake or fail when promises are made. Emotional safety cannot exist without reliability. It's one thing to say, I'm here for you, and another thing entirely to be there when the night is long, when the argument is tense, when life gets messy. A man who can weather the storms with her, without judgment, without resentment, sends a message that resonates deeper than any compliment or gift ever could. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to be afraid with me. Another critical aspect is respect for her boundaries. A woman never forgets a man who honors her limits, her comfort zones, and her autonomy. Safety is not control. It is respect. It is not insisting on bending her to his way of thinking, but supporting her as she defines her own space. When a man respects her boundaries, he demonstrates that he values her as a person, not just as a companion or partner. That respect is internalized deeply because it speaks to her self-worth and her dignity. She remembers it because it's rare and because it feels like freedom within intimacy, a paradox that only someone truly attuned can provide. A man who creates safety also inspires trust through honesty. Women never forget a man whose words match his actions, who doesn't manipulate, deceive, or withhold the truth to serve his own agenda. Truthfulness, even when difficult, is a cornerstone of safety. It signals to her that she can rely on him not just in small matters, but in life-altering moments. When she experiences his honesty consistently, she begins to believe in him, and by extension in the security of the relationship itself. That trust is hard-earned, and once established, it leaves a lasting impression that time cannot erase. Think about the emotional impact. When a woman feels safe, she relaxes. She opens up, she shares herself fully without fear of being used, belittled, or abandoned. That feeling lingers. She will replay moments where she felt protected, seen, and valued, and she will compare them silently to every other man who comes into her life. And she will always remember him, the man who offered that rare, precious sanctuary in a world that rarely slows down long enough to offer it. In essence, safety is not just about guarding her. It's about empowering her. A man who makes her feel safe allows her to grow, to shine, and to trust again. He gives her the space to be her authentic self without fear. He gives her stability in a world of unpredictability. He gives her confidence that there is at least one person she can rely on completely. And when a man does all of this consistently, without drama, without coercion, without conditions, he becomes unforgettable. Because she doesn't just see him, she feels him. She doesn't just appreciate him, she internalizes him as someone who redefined how she experiences trust, security, and love. That is the kind of man who leaves a mark on her memory forever. Not the flashy gestures, not the grand promises, not the fleeting attention, but the one who provides safety in every sense of the word. Physical strength paired with emotional intelligence. Reliability paired with empathy. Honesty paired with respect. That combination doesn't just win admiration. It builds a legacy in her heart, one that she carries long after everything else fades. There is a profound difference between hearing and truly listening. Most men hear, but few men listen, and even fewer do so with the kind of presence that leaves a woman feeling fully understood. A man who listens without trying to fix everything is unforgettable. Not because he solves her problems, but because he honors her voice, her feelings, and her experience. Women remember the men who give them space to speak, space to feel, space to exist without judgment, interruption, or unsolicited advice. That kind of listening goes far beyond simple attention. It is an act of respect, empathy, and emotional intelligence that touches her soul in ways words alone cannot describe. When a woman shares something, whether it is a minor frustration, a life-altering decision, or a vulnerability she has been guarding, she is not always looking for a solution. She is often seeking acknowledgement, validation, and the comfort of being fully seen. A man who instinctively understands this without being told sets himself apart. Instead of jumping in with solutions, critiques, or stories of his own, he listens. He asks questions not to redirect the conversation, but to deepen understanding. He allows silence when it is needed, and gives space for her emotions to unfold naturally. Women never forget this kind of listening because it is rare and because it communicates one powerful message. You matter. Your feelings matter. I am here for you, not to change you, but to witness you. The temptation to fix things is human. Men are taught, consciously or unconsciously, to solve problems, to provide, to take action. But when a woman speaks from her heart, what she often needs is not a repair, a strategy, or a step-by-step plan. She needs someone who will carry her emotions alongside her, someone who will acknowledge the weight of her thoughts, and someone who will resist the urge to turn the conversation into a project. A man who masters this restraint becomes unforgettable because he honors the depth of her humanity rather than diminishing it with solutions she didn't ask for. Listening without fixing everything is also a demonstration of emotional patience. Women are drawn to men who can hold space for the messiness of life. Life isn't neat, and emotions rarely come packaged in a way that can be immediately resolved. A man who can sit with her frustration, confusion, or sadness without rushing to conclusions shows that he is capable of sustaining intimacy over time. He signals that he is not intimidated by her complexity, that he is willing to be present even when there is no immediate payoff. That endurance, patience paired with attentive listening is etched into her memory because it represents stability, care, and a rare kind of emotional bravery. Another key aspect is validation. A woman will never forget the man who validates her experience without trying to control or interpret it. Validation is simple, yet powerful. It does not require agreement. It does not demand approval, and it does not impose solutions. It is the act of saying, silently or verbally, I hear you, I see you, your experience is real. When a man practices this consistently, he builds trust and emotional intimacy. He shows that he is not just physically present, but emotionally invested in her inner world. That investment becomes a cornerstone of connection and remembrance. Listening without fixing also communicates respect for her autonomy. When a woman speaks, she is exercising her agency, making sense of her thoughts and feelings. A man who resists the urge to dominate, direct, or control the narrative is effectively acknowledging her independence. He is saying, I trust your ability to navigate your life. I am here to support you without overstepping. That respect is unforgettable because it does not condescend or patronize. It lifts her up rather than diminishing her voice, and it creates a safe environment where she feels valued, not for what she can do for him, but for who she is. The subtlety of this kind of listening cannot be overstated. It's not loud, flashy, or dramatic. It is quiet, deliberate, and intentional. Eye contact, nods, gentle acknowledgement, and thoughtful pauses communicate attention more profoundly than words ever could. She will remember the man who leaned in, who mirrored her emotions, who resisted distraction, and who gave her the gift of complete focus. In a world where most people are distracted, multitasking, or self-absorbed, this kind of undivided attention becomes a rare and unforgettable experience. Equally important is the way this kind of listening fosters vulnerability. When a woman senses that she can speak without being judged, criticized, or fixed, she gradually reveals deeper layers of herself. Thoughts she might have kept private, dreams she feared sharing, insecurities she concealed, all emerge in the presence of a man who listens without fixing. And when that vulnerability is met with understanding and presence rather than correction, she internalizes a profound sense of safety and trust. That memory of being seen and heard in her most authentic state stays with her indefinitely. Finally, a man who listens without fixing everything shows emotional intelligence. He understands that relationships are not about transactions. They are about connection, empathy, and mutual growth. He recognizes the power of being present over being helpful, of understanding over advising, and of listening over directing. Women never forget men like this because they communicate value and respect, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet mastery of presence and empathy. That type of man leaves an impression far deeper than one who is charming, wealthy, or flashy. He leaves a mark because he touches the emotional core in a way that is profoundly transformative. In essence, listening without fixing everything is a skill, a discipline, and a gift. It tells a woman that she matters more than the need to solve her life for her, that her voice is powerful and worthy of attention, and that emotional intimacy is built not through action but through understanding. A man who does this consistently is not easily forgotten because he becomes a benchmark for what true care and presence feel like. He doesn't just exist in her life, he shapes it by offering the rarest of gifts, the experience of being fully heard. In a world obsessed with appearances, a woman never forgets the man who looks beyond the surface. She notices those who are drawn only to beauty, to fleeting charm, to what is easily visible, and she moves on from them quickly. But the man who sees her worth beyond appearance, the one who values her intelligence, her resilience, her character, her ambitions, leaves a lasting impression. This is the man who understands that true attraction is deeper than physicality, and that the qualities that endure are the ones that define who she is at her core. Women remember him not because he flattered her looks, but because he recognized her essence and treated it as precious, respected, and worthy of attention. Beauty fades, charm wanes, youth is temporary, but character, heart, and intellect endure. A man who recognizes this sees her for who she truly is, not just who she looks like or how she presents herself. He notices the way she thinks, the depth of her convictions, the strength she carries quietly, and the moments where her soul shines in subtle ways. He appreciates her ambition, her creativity, her humor, her insight, and the way she carries herself in the world. This kind of recognition makes a woman feel seen, valued, and understood, and those feelings embed themselves deeply in her memory. It's not just about verbal praise. A woman never forgets a man who validates her worth through his actions. When he seeks her opinion on matters of importance, listens to her ideas with genuine curiosity, and encourages her to pursue her passions, he communicates that her mind is as attractive as her body. When he celebrates her accomplishments, no matter how small, he shows that he values her effort, her dedication, and her growth. This kind of attention tells her that she is respected, not for superficial qualities, but for the substance of who she is, and that type of respect is unforgettable. A man who sees her worth beyond appearance also understands that she is multidimensional. He does not reduce her to a single role or expectation. She is not just a partner, a companion, or someone to admire physically. He recognizes the layers of her identity, her professional ambitions, her creative talents, her emotional depth, her social conscience, her intellect, and her spirit. By acknowledging and engaging with all these facets, he demonstrates that he sees her as a complete human being, rather than a decorative figure. This awareness makes her feel empowered, and empowerment is something a woman never forgets. Respecting her worth also means treating her opinions and feelings as valid. A woman will remember the man who does not dismiss her thoughts, because they differ from his own, who does not undermine her decisions to assert control, and who does not belittle her emotions as trivial. When he engages with her mind and her perspective with seriousness and sincerity, he communicates that she matters beyond superficiality. He makes her feel like her voice has weight, and that sense of significance resonates far longer than compliments about her appearance ever could. Furthermore, a man who sees her worth beyond appearance supports her growth without trying to mold her into someone else. He admires her authenticity rather than attempting to control or change her to fit a preconceived idea. Women never forget men who appreciate them as they are while still inspiring them to become better versions of themselves. This kind of recognition is rare because it balances admiration with encouragement. It honors who she is today while nurturing the potential she carries for tomorrow. Another aspect of this unforgettable quality is empathy. A man who sees her worth beyond appearance understands her struggles, her fears, and her vulnerabilities. He doesn't reduce her worth to superficial measures or ignore her challenges. Instead, he shows compassion and support, acknowledging her humanity and validating her experiences. He becomes someone she can rely on not only to admire her successes, but also to stand by her through challenges. That balance between admiration and support is deeply memorable. A man who prioritizes her inner qualities also communicates stability and maturity. He does not chase fleeting pleasure or gratification. He invests in connection and substance. Women never forget men who demonstrate that they are capable of valuing depth, integrity, and authenticity over shallow impressions. This kind of recognition fosters a sense of safety and trust, because she knows she is appreciated for being real, not for performing a role or meeting an expectation. It's also important to recognize that this perception goes beyond words. Women notice subtle cues, the way a man's eyes light up when she shares an idea, the way he encourages her ambitions, the way he treats her opinions with the same importance as his own. These moments accumulate, creating a mental and emotional record that lingers. Unlike superficial compliments, these actions communicate a deeper understanding and respect that cannot be faked. Ultimately, a man who sees her worth beyond appearance demonstrates that he is capable of love that is profound and enduring. He understands that connection built on substance is far more lasting than attraction built on looks. Women remember these men because they validate her existence as someone valuable for her essence, not just her exterior. They make her feel respected, understood, empowered, and cherished in ways that leave a permanent imprint. In essence, recognition of her worth beyond appearance is a combination of awareness, respect, support, and empathy. It is about seeing her complete identity, valuing her mind and heart, encouraging her growth, and honoring her individuality. A man who embodies these qualities does not merely impress her. He transforms her experience of connection. She will carry the memory of his respect, admiration, and acknowledgement forever because it touches a part of her that is permanent, deep, and profoundly human. Women may forget fleeting compliments, material gifts, or casual gestures, but they never forget the man who values them at their core. He is unforgettable because he sees them, appreciates them, and cherishes them, not for what is temporary, but for what is enduring. A woman never forgets the man who challenges her to grow, not because he is critical or harsh, but because he sees her potential when she might not even see it herself. This is the kind of man who refuses to let her settle for mediocrity, who encourages her to step beyond comfort zones, and who pushes her to become the best version of herself. Growth is uncomfortable, and most people resist it, but the man who helps her face that discomfort, who guides her through it with patience and encouragement, leaves an indelible mark. Women remember him because he becomes not just a companion, but a catalyst for transformation. The man who challenges her to grow understands that love is not about shielding her from life's difficulties or making everything easy. True love, in his eyes, is about inspiring her to reach higher, think bigger, and act bolder. He sees that growth often requires struggle, and he doesn't shy away from guiding her through that process. This guidance isn't about controlling her or imposing his vision. It's about illuminating possibilities she might not have considered, about asking questions that provoke thought, and about presenting opportunities for self-discovery. In doing so, he becomes someone she associates with strength, insight, and empowerment. Challenging her to grow also requires honesty and courage. A man who truly cares will tell her the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. He doesn't enable excuses or let her remain stagnant because it's easier for both of them. Instead, he points out blind spots with tact, encourages reflection, and sets expectations that push her toward progress. She will never forget this because it shows that he respects her enough to hold her accountable, and that he believes in her capabilities more than she sometimes believes in herself. The courage to speak truth and the patience to guide through it is rare, and that rarity makes him unforgettable. He also becomes unforgettable because he inspires her to take risks. Growth often demands stepping into the unknown, confronting fears, and facing uncertainty. The man who challenges her doesn't mock her hesitation or shame her for fear. Instead, he supports her as she confronts it. He becomes a source of courage, giving her confidence that she can tackle challenges and achieve more than she thought possible. This encouragement transforms her mindset, teaching her that discomfort is not a barrier, but a gateway to growth. Over time, she internalizes this lesson, and the memory of the man who helped her push beyond her limits becomes permanently embedded in her heart. Another aspect is that he nurtures her ambitions. Women never forget the man who celebrates their dreams and actively participates in their pursuit. He doesn't diminish her aspirations or make her feel guilty for wanting more. He provides guidance, resources, and support to help her reach higher. This could be through advice, introductions, or simply belief in her abilities. She remembers him because he aligns himself with her growth rather than competing with it, creating a partnership that is transformative rather than limiting. The man who challenges her to grow also models growth himself. Women notice when a man pursues his own improvement, faces challenges, and embraces personal development. When he demonstrates a commitment to evolving, it inspires her to do the same. She never forgets the man who not only pushes her to improve, but also leads by example. This shared journey of growth creates a bond that is far deeper than surface-level attraction. It fosters mutual respect, admiration, and a sense of shared purpose. Patience is a critical part of this dynamic. Growth doesn't happen overnight, and a man who challenges her to grow understands that setbacks, doubts, and struggles are part of the process. He doesn't withdraw support when progress is slow, and he doesn't lose faith when mistakes are made. Instead, he encourages resilience, reinforces her confidence, and celebrates even the smallest victories along the way. This consistency creates a sense of stability and trust that she will never forget, because he becomes not just a motivator, but a reliable partner in her journey of self-improvement. Importantly, challenging her to grow is not about comparison or competition. He does not belittle her to elevate himself, nor does he frame growth as a contest. Instead, he provides insight, perspective, and inspiration that empowers her to rise on her own terms. Women remember this because it feels authentic, supportive, and nurturing, rather than manipulative. The distinction is subtle but profound. It's the difference between a man who builds her up and a man who tries to control or change her. The former leaves a lasting impression. The latter fades from memory. He also teaches her the value of self-reflection. A man who challenges her to grow encourages her to examine her decisions, behaviors, and patterns, not to criticize her, but to illuminate areas where she can improve. This guidance is done with empathy and respect, emphasizing her strengths while gently highlighting opportunities for development. She will remember him because he makes self-improvement feel like empowerment rather than criticism. And that perspective can change the trajectory of her personal and professional life. Ultimately, the man who challenges her to grow leaves a legacy. He is unforgettable because he does not simply accompany her through life, he shapes her experience of herself. He instills confidence, resilience, and ambition. He models integrity, accountability, and courage. He creates an environment in which she can stretch, evolve, and become the most powerful version of herself. Women remember these men because they represent not only love, but also possibility, transformation, and the realization of potential that might otherwise have remained untapped. In essence, a man who challenges a woman to grow does so with respect, patience, empathy, and belief in her abilities. He inspires her to rise above comfort, to face fears, and to pursue her dreams. He models growth himself and walks beside her in the journey. He holds her accountable, not to control her, but to empower her. And through all of this, he leaves an indelible mark because he transforms the way she experiences life, love, and herself. She will never forget him, not because of what he gave her materially, not because of fleeting gestures, but because he awakened her potential, nurtured her ambitions, and challenged her to become greater than she thought she could be. That is the mark of a man whose presence endures far beyond the moment and whose impact shapes her memory for a lifetime. A woman never forgets a man who stays loyal in action. Not just words, because loyalty is the ultimate measure of character. Words can be cheap, promises can be broken, and intentions can fade, but consistent action creates a legacy of trust that cannot be erased. Women remember the men who demonstrate loyalty, not only in the grand visible moments, but in the quiet, subtle, everyday ways. This is the man who doesn't just claim devotion, but shows it through reliability, honesty, and unwavering commitment, even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unnoticed by others. Loyalty is more than a trait. It is a behavior, a choice, and a reflection of true integrity, and women never forget the men who embody it fully. Loyalty begins with consistency. A woman notices when a man follows through on what he says. He doesn't make empty promises or offer platitudes that fade with time. When he says he will be there, he is there. When he commits to a plan, he honors it. It's not about perfection, but about reliability. These consistent actions demonstrate that she can trust him, that she can rely on him not just in moments of convenience, but in the moments that matter most. Over time, this consistency becomes woven into her sense of security, and her perception of him as someone whose integrity is unshakable. A man who stays loyal in action also protects her from betrayal. Loyalty is not just about presence, it is about choice. It is choosing her above fleeting temptations, distractions, or self-interest. It is acting in ways that reinforce the bond they share, not undermining it for personal gain. A woman will never forget a man who refuses to compromise his integrity, who does not waver when the stakes are high, and who actively defends the trust she places in him. That kind of loyalty becomes the foundation of a relationship and leaves an impression far more lasting than charm, wealth, or charisma. Loyalty in action also means transparency. A woman notices when a man is honest about his intentions, his feelings, and his actions. He does not hide behind lies, manipulation, or half-truths. Even when the truth is difficult to share, he chooses to be open and accountable, knowing that trust cannot exist without honesty. This transparency is unforgettable because it communicates that he respects her enough to let her see him fully, flaws and all, and that he is committed to maintaining a bond built on authenticity rather than convenience or deception. Another critical aspect is protection, not in the sense of control, but in the sense of standing up for her when it matters. Loyalty manifests in the willingness to support her emotionally, socially, and practically. It is the man who stands beside her in challenging situations, who defends her reputation when others attempt to undermine it, and who offers help without being asked when she faces adversity. Women never forget this because it demonstrates that he is invested in her well-being and that his loyalty is active, not passive. It shows that his commitment is not superficial or conditional, but deeply rooted in care and respect. Loyalty is also reflected in the small, everyday actions that demonstrate devotion without fanfare. It is in remembering the little things that matter to her, in keeping his word about promises made weeks or months ago, in prioritizing her needs alongside his own, and in maintaining a consistent presence even during life's mundane routines. Women remember these gestures because they reveal the depth of his character, his attention to detail, his follow-through, and his unwillingness to let words remain empty. These small actions accumulate over time, creating an enduring impression that words alone could never achieve. Importantly, a man who demonstrates loyalty understands that it is tested in moments of difficulty. True loyalty is not about staying when it is easy or convenient. It is about standing firm when the path is hard. A woman never forgets a man who remains steadfast during conflicts, challenges, or temptations. Whether it is financial stress, career pressures, or emotional turbulence, he chooses to act with integrity and devotion. His loyalty is not performative. It is deeply ingrained in his decisions, behaviors, and mindset. Women remember men like this because they demonstrate that love and commitment are not conditional. They are a deliberate, conscious choice every day. Loyalty in action also means defending boundaries. A man who is loyal respects her limits and protects the integrity of the relationship. He does not engage in behaviors that could harm her trust or compromise the bond they share. He understands that loyalty is about safeguarding the emotional, physical, and mental well-being of the one he cares about. Women never forget a man who demonstrates this because it communicates respect, maturity, and an understanding that true devotion is about more than words. It is about actions that preserve safety and trust. Furthermore, loyalty is demonstrated through sacrifice. A woman notices when a man puts her needs, happiness, or growth ahead of his own convenience or comfort, not in a way that diminishes himself, but in a way that honors the partnership. He may adjust his schedule, offer time, provide support, or simply remain present when it is difficult. These acts of selflessness are indelibly etched in her memory because they communicate that his commitment is real and not contingent on ease or reward. Loyalty is tangible, and she feels it through these consistent choices. Ultimately, a man who stays loyal in action, not just words, leaves a lasting imprint because he embodies the essence of trust, integrity, and respect. He is memorable not for his charm, wealth, or fleeting gestures, but for the stability, security, and confidence he provides through consistent, deliberate action. Women remember loyalty because it touches the core of what they seek in a partner, someone they can rely on, confide in, and build a future with. A man who demonstrates loyalty in every choice, decision, and action becomes unforgettable because he shows that love is more than feelings. It is a lived experience. She remembers how he made her feel safe, valued, and honored, not just once, but continuously. His loyalty becomes the benchmark by which she measures others, and the standard against which all future relationships are compared. In essence, loyalty in action is about showing up every day, being accountable, protecting trust, embracing honesty, and prioritizing her well-being without hesitation or condition. Women never forget a man who does this because he transforms trust into a tangible, lived experience. His impact endures long after words fade because he proves that devotion is not something to be spoken. It is something to be demonstrated consistently, consciously, and with unwavering commitment. At the end of the day, the men women never forget are not the ones who impress with fleeting gestures, grandiose words, or superficial charm. They are the men who show up with purpose, integrity, and consistency. They are the men who make her feel safe, who listen without judgment or the need to fix everything, who see her worth beyond appearance, who challenge her to grow, who stay loyal in action rather than words, and who understand and support her emotionally. These actions are not optional. They are the markers of a man who leaves a lasting imprint on her heart and mind. The power of these 6 behaviors lies not in their complexity, but in their authenticity. It's not about perfection. It's about conscious, deliberate, and consistent action that demonstrates care, respect, and devotion. A woman remembers the man who treats her as a complete human being, who nurtures her potential, and who values her soul above all else. She never forgets the man who challenges her to rise, stands by her in storms, and honors her with unwavering loyalty. These are the men who become benchmarks for trust, love, and character. Men who inspire her to dream bigger, love deeper, and live fuller. So if you want to be unforgettable, understand this. It is not charm, wealth, or fleeting attention that leaves a lasting mark. It is the consistent demonstration of respect, presence, and integrity. It is the ability to make her feel seen, safe, valued, and inspired. It is about being a man whose actions speak louder than words, whose love empowers rather than diminishes, and whose character sets a standard that others can only aspire to. Be that man. Show up with intention, act with integrity, listen with empathy, challenge with love, remain loyal when no one is watching, support with heart, because the men who do these things are not just remembered, they are honored, cherished, and impossible to forget. And that ultimately is the power of true impact.